Perfect. Welcome to North Texas Rotary E-Club April 25th meeting. Glad to see everyone. Linda, would you like to start with an invocation?
Okay. We are thankful for this day that you have given us. It's for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes, for each day's duties, for each day's problems. May we be challenged to give our best always, and may we be assured of your presence with us. Amen.
Great. David, you want to do the pledge?
Huh?
David, the pledge.
Oh, David, pledge.
You'll join me in the pledge of allegiance for there. I don't understand this backward. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So Linda, before the meeting you were saying there was some business you wanted to discuss.
Well, Jerica's not online.
Oh, so then we can't discuss it.
So, we're going to, we've assigned her some duties now.
Oh, okay.
She missed a meeting.
She's not online.
So, anyway, since she's not online, well, I'll call her and tell her she was nominated and elected.
Lucky lady.
They
It's unanimous.
Right.
had a meeting, they didn't invite me and came out and told me I was president.
Yeah, and David and I went out to Challenge Air on Saturday out at Meacham. It's the Vintage Flying Museum, and we did 5 flights, and we had a lot of fun. My niece and her grandson came out, and he got pretty upset because he lost his balloon. It went up to the ceiling along with other things there in the hangar, and he was very upset and was wanting to go home. We got him calmed down. He really enjoyed it, and now he wants to come back next year. So it was a great day for all of them. And Walter, I don't know if you know about Challenge Air. It's where it's where pilots in the area donate their time and their plane, and we have challenged kids that come out. I think we had 53 this time, or a little bit
They
more.
said they were scheduled 80,
80
and there were only about 7.
But anyway, they go up for about a 30-minute flight around the area, and they get to hold the controls. And then when they get down, the pilot gives them a set of wings and a certificate as a certified co-pilot. And their attitude is, if I can fly an airplane, I can do anything. And so it really boosts their egos, their self-aware of their esteem, and they're just really thrilled. Like a lot of them, they don't want to go at first, but by the time they get back, they're raring to go again. And we've been doing this for about, it's been almost 30 years as the organization. It was started by a Rotarian that had been hurt landing his plane on a aircraft carrier, and he was paralyzed, and so he was a pilot. So anyway, he had this idea about being challenged and flying kids and let them do things that they didn't think they could do. So this has been going on, and it's sponsored a lot by the DeSoto Rotary Club, but a lot of Rotary clubs around here participate in it. So that's one of the things we do once or twice a year.
Cool.
So,
any other business that needs to be discussed before I introduce the speaker? Is there anyone has business? That
the only thing, the district left yesterday or Sunday for the district conference cruise. So they're out and about. They should be in Cozumel today doing their projects and all of that.
Maybe that's where Jessica is.
That's where she is. Thank you.
I thought she said she
Jerica.
was going.
No wonder she didn't answer my phone call. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I thought. That's where she is.
Yeah. So is our exchange student. We have an exchange student from Switzerland, and he's also on it too.
Very nice.
So,
very nice.
Anyway, he's skipping school.
And I got criticized for not being eager about a cruise, but I was in the Navy, so it somehow didn't excite me. But
But he spent 48 hours on a ship in the Navy.
Yeah, evidently the big ship.
So anyway, okay, let's get ready for our speaker.
Okay, let me go to my notes, and I will read her quick introduction. And let's see, here it is. Let me go to the calendar, and okay, I'm in the wrong spot. Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Amy Sarro, her topic is how hearing is connected to overall hearing and well-being. The pandemic prompted widespread mask wearing, which resulted in instant awareness of any underlying hearing difficulty. In the U.S. alone, an estimated 30 million Americans have hearing loss, with less than 30% seeking treatment. Hearing loss separates us from our social and emotional connections with those around us in ways we aren't always aware of. According to a recent Harvard Graduate School of Education project, 36% of Americans reported experiencing serious loneliness in 2021. Hearing loss is an invisible disability that impacts mental, physical, emotional, social, and financial health. Over-the-counter hearing aids have opened a dialogue around hearing healthcare and its importance. Dr. Amy Sarro is an audiologist and Forbes Health Advisory Board member who's on a mission to improve the hearing healthcare landscape to make a difference in people's quality of life. So I'm going to turn it over to you. If you would like to, you can use PowerPoint if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. And I was going to recommend everyone mute their mic unless you ask for a question or to answer it, so you don't get background noise. It's you have the floor, Amy. Take 20 to 30 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the introduction. So I'm Dr. Amy, and I would like to share some slides here. Recently, I just came from a conference. I was in Seattle last week, and one of the big topics was over-the-counter hearing aids. So I thought that might be interesting to talk about a little bit more, also with that introduction. So let me see if I can share my screen here.
There's if you hover over the bottom, it says, there you go, you got it. Okay.
Okay, great.
You're good.
So you
it's
can all
working.
see that?
Yes, it's working.
Great. Okay. So let's see if I can put this in presentational. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about over-the-counter hearing aids, as well as what the hearing aid landscape looks like a little bit right now. So as you mentioned, so I'm a doctor of audiology. I work with hearing loss, ear-related dizziness, tinnitus. I'm also the lead audiologist for Soundly.com and a Forbes Health Advisory Board member. So this is just an overview of some information that I'll be sharing with you. So I'll talk a little bit about what are over-the-counter hearing aids. This is a recent change in the hearing healthcare landscape, and I get a lot of questions about this. I know that people are really interested in this topic. What is that, and what does that mean for anybody with hearing loss? Then I'll explain a little bit about the hearing screening process. There's a way to do this online. I'll talk a little bit about advantages and disadvantages of this particular type of technology, ways that you can access it, and also other care models outside of over-the-counter hearing aids. I'll give you some examples of some patients that, modeled off of patients that I've come across, and then also what is coming in the future. So this is just kind of an overview of what I'll go through. So first of all, what is an over-the-counter hearing aid? So I don't know if anyone here has come across this, or if you've had any friends or relatives that have, sought over-the-counter devices. This is just a picture of some different models that can fit that over-the-counter device category. So when we talk about what they are, so these are, the FDA classifies them as a self-fitting air conduction device. They're separate from prescription devices because they're more limited in what they can do. And they're meant for people with a mild to moderate hearing loss or hearing difficulty. They're also meant for adults ages 18 and over. And as I mentioned, it's a mild to moderate hearing loss. So somebody with greater than a moderate hearing loss, the maximum output is not going to be appropriate. It won't be enough to provide what they need in order to hear well. The programming of these devices is self-fit, and I'll get into more about what that means in a moment. But essentially, we think of this also another way of describing over-the-counter is a self-care hearing model. So it's all controlled by the user. Now, you might be wondering, okay, so that tells me a bit about what these devices are made for, who they are for, but who are they not for? They're not meant for children under the ages of 18. They're not meant for somebody who has a difference in their ears. So if one ear hears significantly better than the other, or if you've had a sudden sensory neural hearing loss, you wake up one morning and hearing is gone in that ear, or it's much worse. You'd want to see a doctor about that because it's important to get treatment in a timely fashion if that happens. If you have greater, as I mentioned, than a moderate hearing loss, or if your configuration of hearing loss is not the typical sloping hearing loss, which we see with noise exposure, with aging, that tends to be that sloping pattern. Someone who has a congenital hearing loss, for example, probably has a different pattern to their hearing loss. If you have challenging ear canal geometry, so sometimes people say, gosh, I can't put headphones in my ears, they won't stay in. That person may not have, a normal shape to their ear canal. They might need something special to place in there to help it stay in place. Anyone who has a medical condition like chronic drainage, ear infection, surgical ear history, that won't be for them. Poor dexterity. So if someone needs, help, they're not able to pick something up well with their fingers, this might not be the best option for them. If you're someone who's not comfortable with technology, so operating a smartphone or reading instructions and following the steps that they give you, if you need more support than that, this might not be the best option. And also for people who just prefer more of an in-person supported care model, an over-the-counter hearing device is probably not the best option. But in terms of hearing screening, recently we've had some changes in how this can be done. So perhaps you've had an in-person comprehensive hearing test, which you can have in an audiology clinic. They will do a variety of tests to check which part of your ear has hearing loss, and they determine that with several different tests like bone conduction, air conduction, the headphones. Now, you might see different types of online tests out there, and some of them are better than others. I would say that there are 3 categories of tests. There's something called a frequency test, which is really more of, it's kind of a game or something fun that people do. It starts out as a low pitch and then it gets increasingly higher in pitch. And they say, the longer you can hear it, the older or the younger you are, it's like it gives you your age based on what you can hear. So that's more of like a party trick. It's sort of a fun thing. A pure tone test resembles what you would have by a professional. So you'd be listening for those beeps, soft beeping sounds, things like that. And then there's a speech and noise test, which is useful information because a lot of people do struggle in background noise, and that gives you, some validation or some more information. Do you really struggle a lot in noise? But in terms of fitting a hearing aid, it doesn't give you the best information. So of these 3, the pure tone test is going to be the best. If you're going to take one of these online tests, so there are different hearing manufacturers that offer these or online tests, you'll want to follow the instructions. So usually they'll tell you to wear a good pair of headphones, find a quiet space, and then you'll do the test either on your computer or on a phone. Now with Soundly, I mentioned I'm also with Soundly.com. We have a hearing test as well, and it does show you an audiogram. It's sort of like an audiogram. Obviously, it's not the same as having a comprehensive hearing test. It's more of a screening, but it gives you a starting point for anyone who's wondering, do I have hearing loss? They can test this and find out in the comfort of their home whether they need to, go out and have a comprehensive hearing test or look into it more. So these are different options for that. Some of the advantages and disadvantages of over-the-counter. So there's, pros and cons to this type of technology. So a lot of people talk about the affordability of these devices. They do come at a lower cost, comparatively speaking, because you're not going to have all of the follow-up visits and the support that you would have with in-person care. A lot of hearing aid clinics have that bundled into the price of the hearing aid, and so that would be one of the reasons for that cost difference. It's a convenient access because a lot of these places you can purchase online, or you can go to, Walgreens, CVS, places like that to purchase them. And for someone with mild to moderate hearing loss, reasonable dexterity, and they're okay using an app on their smartphone, this could be a good entry point to getting some hearing health care. Some of the disadvantages, so you may have, I'm not sure if you can, for me, this is on the, I don't know if it moved, did that move to the other side for you? Okay, I just moved the window because it was blocking that. Anyway, so some of the disadvantages here, so you won't have that hands-on professional approach. So you're not going to have someone looking in your ear to see, do you have wax? Do you have something in the way, or helping you to insert the piece in the ear? Some of the technology won't be as good in background noise. So if that's a place where you particularly struggle, it may not be the best option for you. And then some of the over-the-counter devices also will not have Bluetooth or limited streaming options. Most of them currently don't have streaming, which means if, let's say, you like to take phone calls and you want the hearing aids to be able to stream the sound to your ears, not all of the over-the-counter devices will be able to do that. And then there won't be those custom hearing aid options. So some people like Ronald Reagan he was, I think, the first well-known to have that custom hearing aid device, which is made to fit your ear, the shape of your ear canal. So that's not an option with over-the-counter. Then, all right, so now the availability of these devices, as I mentioned, you can buy some of these in a pharmacy like a CVS, a Walgreens, Walmart, directly through the manufacturer's websites. So access is easy. If you're someone who lives in a rural area, and let's say there aren't a lot of clinics available for you, these are easier to access. Now I'm going to talk about 3 different care models because, as I mentioned, in the past, we used to have predominantly the prescription hearing aid model, or like that local clinic on the right side. But now we also have over-the-counter and telehealth options. And telehealth is something that's come about recently also over the COVID period. A lot of doctors are interacting with their patients remotely. And that started more during the pandemic, and people have continued wanting that for the convenience of it. So I'm going to talk about 3 different patients. And again, these are not their real images. These are stock images. Their stories are based on real patients that we've interacted with on Soundly. So I have Richard and Susan and Jean. We're going to talk a little bit more about them and what's going on with them and what choices they made. So this is Richard. He's a retired construction manager. And, he's retired now. He's enjoying life at home. But his wife is telling him, gosh, you're turning the TV up kind of loud. And he notices here and there, sometimes conversations are difficult. Overall, he feels like he's doing fine, though. He's not really worried about it. But, to help make his wife happy and to keep things good at home, he wants to try these over-the-counter hearing aids. So he decides to look at, it's called the Bose Lexi B2. And so what he does is he goes to Costco, which you can now buy those there, and he purchases some of them. So he takes them out of the box, reads the manual, downloads the app. You can see it there on the right side of that picture. And then he pairs the devices to his phone, adjusts the volume so it's comfortable for when he's watching TV. His wife's a little happier. They don't have to turn the volume up so loud. And then he did notice when he had a problem, there wasn't a person for him to reach out to, but he did call customer service and they were able to walk him through some troubleshooting options, and that worked fine for him. Okay, now I'm going to talk about Susan. So Susan, she notices that when she's interacting with family, she's struggling sometimes on the phone also. And she doesn't know about going to a local clinic. She's not sure about that. She's never done that before and is feeling a bit apprehensive, but she's done telehealth visits with other care providers. So she thinks, maybe that's a good option for me. So she takes one of these online tests, and this is her with the Jabra Enhance hearing aids. And so she took the online test and they were programmed for her based on those test results. They arrived in the mail, and she set up the hearing aids based on what she was following with the instructions. And then she scheduled an onboarding appointment with her care provider, which you can see there. She's doing that on her phone. And then they made some adjustments, and she's going to have some follow-up appointments with this person remotely as needed. Then going on to Jean. So Jean has had hearing loss for some time, but it's been more recently during the pandemic when people especially started wearing masks that it became really hard to hear because she didn't have those visual cues. And then she realized, gosh, I'm having a problem. I want to get some help. And her brother, who also has a hereditary hearing loss, he recently started going to a clinic and got some help, and he's doing really well. So she felt encouraged by that and decided, maybe it's time for me to try that too. So she went to a local clinic, and because of the shape of her ear and because of her type of hearing loss, they took an ear impression, which is, if you've been to the dentist, kind of the same thing where they take an impression of your teeth, the same thing with the ear. And they made a piece that fits specifically in her ear canal. And then a few weeks after that, she came in to be fit with her new devices. Her local audiologist set these up for her using a process called real ear measurement, where we can take measurement in your ear, make sure that the volume is appropriate and comfortable for you as well. And she's doing very well with her new hearing aids as well. So that just gives you an overview of, what it can look like. So each of those patients were people who had hearing difficulty, but they made a different choice in how they received their care, and they're all happy. Now, if Richard decided, I need more support, perhaps he would choose to return those devices and go see someone in person or pursue telehealth services. But those are the options that currently exist right now. And as I mentioned, so I was recently in Seattle, and we were talking a lot about this topic there with other audiologists at the American Academy of Audiology. So in October of this past year, that's when over-the-counter devices became available. So what has happened since then? It's been, I guess 6 months or so since that time. Well, we're certainly seeing an increase in the amount of interest in hearing healthcare. I know there was a recent survey, and I can't remember the journal that did this, but they surveyed people and asked, how often do you go to the dentist? How often do you get your eyes checked? And most of us go to the dentist, at least once or twice a year. And then they asked things about, how often you get your hearing tested. And it turned out people are actually more likely to take their dog to the vet than they are to get a hearing test. So as an audiologist, I know I myself and my colleagues as well are happy to see some interest and attention to our ears, because they're such an important part of our overall health. They keep us connected, being able to hear and participate in social, conversation and all of that. So definitely more conversation. In terms of over-the-counter products, we're not seeing that those are dramatically going up, that there's lots of people buying them. What is happening is it's sort of like window shopping. People see that as an entryway to get healthcare, to get hearing healthcare. And that's a good thing, because maybe over-the-counter is what piques their interest, but eventually perhaps they choose a different care model because that's more appropriate for their lifestyle or their needs. And overall, there's just greater need for support in audiology. We're seeing that there's just more and more need as people are becoming aware and interested in their hearing health. Yeah, and so some final points that I would say, again, I'm going to move this because I can't quite see there. There we go. Okay. So anyone who's thinking about this for themselves or for a family member, I would say these are some questions to think about. What type of hearing difficulty are you having? Are you struggling just in certain specific situations, like Richard with the TV, or do you find yourself really struggling in general? Are there any complexities or challenges to your situation? So for example, is dexterity a concern? Do you have challenging ear canal anatomy? Are there other things that you think are important that you need help with or support with? Is self-fitting an appropriate option? So for some people, this works fine. They're happy to download an app on their phone, no problem. For other people, that's just not how they prefer to do things, and maybe a different way is better for them. What type of support do you have or do you need? Some people just really need that in-person care. They need someone to be there to help them put the device in their ear, or they need to have very specific programs or adjustments, or just that one-on-one personal care. Another thing that's important that I like to emphasize for people who are thinking about, which option is right for me or for my family member. What is the return policy? So this is something that with the FDA, there is not a rule with over-the-counter that there's necessarily a certain return policy. So before you buy that device, or before, your friend buys that device, I would want to know, so what is the return policy? If this doesn't work for me, how can I go about returning it? Is it a 30-day window? Is it 45? Is it 60? And also, what is the support? Is there a customer service number I can call? Or is there a way that I can get help if I need it, if I have questions? So those are all things that I would recommend people think about before they make their choice. And yeah, that's all I have. So I thank you so much for your time and attention, and I'm happy to take any questions. I hope that this was helpful.
I noticed there's a huge difference in cost when you get hearing aids that are more professional. 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 are not an unusual amount to pay, and the over-the-counter ones are more in the hundreds.
Talking about how much it costs.
How do they justify those extra thousands? It's like 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes 10 times more than the over-the-counter. What are they giving you that justifies that much more expense?
Yeah, that's a great question. So every clinic is going to be different with how they do that, and it's going to vary based on a lot of variables. So your geographic location, so it's going to cost more, in New York City versus in maybe a rural city. The level of technology of the devices, that determines also the price of the hearing aid. So you have at least 3 levels of technology. You have standard, advanced, and premium. That right there can make a difference between $1,000 and $2,000 between each of those levels. And then also a lot of clinics have what is called a bundled care model, meaning that in the price of the device is 3 years of service. So they're factoring in 3 years of follow-up visits. Some people, for disposable batteries, they'll include disposable batteries in that price. So if you're wondering about, why is this so much more, I would certainly ask the clinic about what their pricing model is, but those are kind of the main things. So the level of the technology, and then the type of care. Is it a bundled care model, and geographic location, that sort of thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Does the brand really make a difference?
What's that?
Does the brand really make a difference? Like from, like my sister, she's hard of hearing. She's almost deaf. And so, she always has to have her hearing aids custom made in that because her ear hole is, it's a funky shape. Mm-hmm. It's bigger than normal, and she's had it since she was a kid. But I was just wondering, she said that there's a difference between the Phonak brand and another brand, and I'm like, I don't understand. I just know that she's always was upset. The high-end brand doesn't have the Bluetooth that matches the phone.
So most of we say that there's the top 6 manufacturers. We have GN Resound, Phonak, Oticon, Starkey, Signia, and Widex. Those are all good brands. Excuse me. In terms of pricing, it can depend a little bit. Some clinics have a better deal with certain brands, but in general, one brand doesn't tend to be more expensive than the other. It is a lot to do with the level of the technology. Now, if you're talking about like a custom hearing aid put in the ear, or, custom ear mold, those, it may be a little bit more for a custom model depending on the size of it, but it doesn't usually make a big difference. It's more of the chip on the inside of the device that determines the price in terms of the device.
Okay, that makes sense, because she just always told me that she always has to have like the ear mold itself. Like that's the part that always has to get shaped for her ear, because it is large and it's kind of weird. At least to me it is. So like that's what she's told me, but I don't understand like the tubing part, because she's got the ear mold and then she's got the tubing that goes to the back of the hearing aid itself. I don't understand hearing aids because I don't have them, but I mean, like I've always like wondered like what's the difference like in them, because I don't understand like where the actual hearing part of the hearing aid comes from, if that makes sense, because I don't understand how the tube works.
Yeah, so there's different styles of hearing aids. What you're talking about is called a BTE, or behind the ear style, where we have an ear mold, and then you have, it's attached with a piece of tube or tubing to an ear hook, which is connected to the hearing aid. With a BTE, what happens is the hearing aid makes the sound that it sends it down the tube through the ear mold into the ear canal. So it's all coming from the hearing aid, but it's kind of separated and funneled through the tube. Another style of hearing aid, which is probably the most popular style in the market, it looks very similar, but it's called a RIC, or a receiver in the canal. The difference there is that the receiver, or the speaker, another word for speaker, is directly in the ear. Versus a BTE, the speaker actually sits behind the ear and then it's funneled into the ear canal.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I know she just told me that she can't have the ones that go in the ear because of the way her ear is shaped.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I have a quick question, if that'd be okay.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you have time? Our generation, Walter's and mine, we're the CPAP and the hearing aid generation now. And I was just wondering, a lot of our friends have them. And the one person just the other night, she has hearing aids, and then her husband had gotten her this little black, it looks like a little flash drive, but it's a little microphone that she carries with her. So that if they're out to eat or something, if she has that even on the table, it picks it up and amplifies it better for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is a great device, especially so I was talking about, where do you struggle most? Some people really struggle in background noise, and the hearing aid helps, but they need more support. And that is great for a remote microphone, which is what you're describing, where either, let's say, your spouse or the person that you're talking to will clip it on their shirt and it can pick up their voice, or they can put it on the table and it's going to pick up, around. What that does is it reduces the background noise around, and it sends a more direct signal of the voice into their ear, which makes it a lot easier to hear. What it's doing is reducing what we call the signal to noise ratio. So we're bringing the level of the noise down and making the voice, easier to understand by sending it more directly.
Well, it worked great. It was really helpful. Even like when you're in the back seat versus the front seat in a vehicle, it just helped to be able to hear for her to hear everybody. That was great. Thank you.
Well, that's great. Yeah. One thing I would also add, I know we had a question earlier about the cost. Another thing that is helpful to know or understand is that Medicare Part B does not have any coverage for hearing aids. And so that's one of the reasons why there's a large out-of-pocket expense for, hearing aids and services associated with them. So if you want a hearing evaluation, if you have a physician referral, that would be covered by Medicare. But the hearing aids themselves are not. However, if there's a surgery involved, like with we call it a BAHA, a bone anchored hearing aid, or a cochlear implant, those are often covered services, or the majority of the services are covered by Medicare. But hearing aids are not. And hopefully someday they will be. Medicare Advantage does have some type of benefits for, depending on the plan. Sometimes it's a discount, sometimes there's a third party program like True Hearing or United Healthcare, another third party that's able to offer something at a better price.
Great.
Are there any other questions? No? Well, let me thank you, Amy, for the presentation. I have hearing aids, so I found it very interesting. And they don't always work the same. I find like sometimes when I'm like in a restaurant, I can hear people, and sometimes I hear the noise more than the people. And what's the best way to filter that? Is it making the sound louder or lower? If you're getting a lot of noise, does it work better if you lower the noise or raise the volume? What do you think would work better?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd have to know for your specific situation, have to know more about, what type of hearing aid do you have? What's the brand?
Phonic.
Phonak. Okay. Do you use the app? Yeah. On your phone? You do. So there is a control in the Phonak app. I don't know if you've played around
there is.
Yep. So I would play with that. You can turn it up where you make the microphones pick up more in front of you and not as much around you. And there are settings in there where you can, change the voice and make the voice louder, reduce the background noise. I would try to adjust that and see if that helps. If not, depending on who you're working with for your hearing care, you could request a noise program where they make something in the software. They can make some adjustments to help you specifically in those situations.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have a question? We'll finish the meeting. Anyone? Okay, then I will close out with the four-way test. Thank you again, Amy. The four-way test are the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth?
It's the truth.
Second, is it fair to all
Is it fair to all concerned?
Third, will be goodwill,
Will
better
be
friendship.
friendships.
Will be beneficial to all concerned. And I was going to say, Linda, don't leave because Walter has
Walter,
some
I've already
questions.
answered him.
Okay, I just thought I'm making sure first, and we'll be fine. I just do because no, we all disappear after that, and I didn't want to disappear without making sure someone was going to help Walter with his. I don't feel so great tonight. Otherwise, I would stay. But if you could do that, that would really help.
And Chris, if you could stay on.
I appreciate it. Well, thanks everyone. See you at the next meeting. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I am not great actually, but I have vertigo. I'm going to the doctor tomorrow. It's been unpleasant.
I would bet it is. Okay. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Me too. I feel I'm on a bad cruise.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You haven't lost your sense of humor, though, obviously. So that's cool.
No, or married. You have to have one if you're married. You know that already.
Yeah, I understand that completely.
How are you doing? How have you been overall? Are you doing okay?
Oh, I'm doing much better. I'm doing.
Good.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting my house fixed up and
Okay.
cleaning up and stuff and everything. Yeah, fixing my own plumbing here. I'm tired of paying plumbers money, but
Right.
no, yeah.
I have a prospect for you for hypnosis.
Oh, sure.
Okay, I was going to recommend this guy's name is Brandon Vorican. He's very wealthy. He owns Seamless.ai, which is he just bought a $28 million home, which tells you a lot. I'm going to say he's doing pretty well.
Wow, yeah, that seamless AI is a good thing. So
Yeah.
AI is great.
And I'll tell you,
Where is he? Is he there in Florida or is
he's
he?
got two homes, one in Ohio and one in Florida. His challenge is insomnia. He doesn't fall asleep. I can tell you right now, he's very ADD. He'll call me up and tell me he needs me to help him with something, and I'll return his call and say, let's make a time to talk. And then he doesn't call me. And I call him back and back and back and back. Weeks go by. He still has the problem and doesn't get back to me. So, it's not like, I just get to a point where it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to keep calling. You want help, but you won't talk to me. I can't help you if you won't talk to me. But,